Hi, and welcome to Looking for Yoda, another episode. I decided to film myself in here because there are pictures of babies on the wall. For no apparent reason. Anyway, today I'm going to be talking with Sara, who has all kinds of cool things to say about yoga, of course, surfing, knitting, cooking, reading, running, all these things where she connects with the universe. So, hope you're going to enjoy. I love your classes. Part of the reason I wanted to talk to you today is because your classes are, I'm not saying like all the other classes at Yes Yoga are all the same vibe, because everybody's different, but at the same time you do have a unique take on it, and that's part of the reason I wanted to talk, because you do have a unique take. So how did you get into yoga?
So I started yoga about 15 years ago, and I have people that can be witness to this. I used to be wound a little bit tighter. I used to be a little high strung. And someone said, have you ever tried yoga? And I thought, well, no, I haven't. So I went and I tried yoga, and I practiced for a couple months, and I figured out what I was supposed to do. And then I cried for the next 6 months in yoga.
Why did you cry?
I was letting go of all the stress and all the junk sitting inside of me. And then I came out on the other side going, wow, this really makes me a better person. Mm-hmm. That was about 15 years ago, and that started my path of doing yoga. I had bounced around, and I walked into this place, and Lucia said, what do you want to do? What are your goals for 2014? I said, well, you know what, I've thought about being a yoga teacher. She goes, great, you go become a yoga teacher, and then we'll talk about giving you a place to teach. So I did, and she did, and now 5 years later, I've been teaching here. This is the only place I've ever taught. Mm-hmm. So, yeah.
Are there other practices that you practice, for lack of yoga and other disciplines?
So I run. Mm-hmm. I was a runner all through high school, and then I ran when I was in my 20s, and then now I do these Ragnars with my friends. That started a few years ago, and I do try to do the 10 mile every year.
Wow. So
yeah.
Where do those take place?
So Ragnars are different places throughout the country. I went and did one I ran with a group from Madison to Chicago. Yeah. And then I've done a couple where they go from Winona up to Minneapolis. And it's a relay run. So one person goes out and runs like 5 miles, and then you meet up with them, and then you switch out to the next runner, and they maybe run 5 or 7 miles. And you go through that sequence of 12 people 3 times.
So how much does each person end up running?
Like anywhere from 15 to 20 miles in total. It takes about 35 hours to make it all happen.
Oh my, wow. Yeah, I've done some running, but that's pretty crazy.
Yeah, and I used to lift. I used to work out at the gym like 3 or 4 times a week. This was back in my 20s. I would lift weights. I was doing all this stuff. My cool down was like 200 crunches.
That was a cool down.
That was my cool down. Yep. And now I go and run. Will and I run together, and then I'm here practicing. So yeah.
So I mean, what do you love about running?
It gives me the same mental sensation that yoga does, because it's breath and body connected, working together, and I just connect into that rhythm, and I can close out everything else. Because my focus needs to be how all of that's working together to get myself one step forward.
What are do you ever get this feeling like when you're running or when you're doing yoga where you're just like in the zone?
Oh, yeah. More so, I think, in running than I do, because I used to run by myself and I would listen to music. Now that I run with Will, I don't listen to music, so the only sound I have...
That's nice for him.
It is nice for him. But now I just have the sound of my feet and my breath. Mm-hmm. Where in a yoga class there's movement around and there's music usually, where I can just get in that like breath, 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 step, step, step. Actually, there's one yoga class. So it was after I started teaching, and I was just so into the flow and just so enjoying it and noticing how my body was moving, I didn't realize until I was about halfway through the sequence with the teacher that I was doing it the opposite side. And there's another time, and so because I was just so into how it felt and the movement and the breath, and I was practicing with my eyes closed, and then I kind of got to a place and I was like, oh wait, I am the opposite side. Just as she cued left, I went right.
Yeah.
And sometimes I practice with my eyes closed.
Really?
Yeah.
I'd be afraid of falling over.
Yeah, I peek when I need to, but
Right.
especially through sun salutations, just to be able to close out movement from other people lets me just really get into my own head and be there.
Yeah, I love it. I love that feeling. That's what I keep coming back for. I keep coming back to yoga because it's just feels like it allows me to, come back inside, work on my breath, be centered, kind of like let go of the world, and it's an amazing feeling.
Yeah. Do you ever drink?
Drink
Like
alcohol?
Yeah.
Yes, I drink.
So you know how you have that like one glass and it's kind of that warm feeling?
Yeah.
And you're like, oh.
Yeah.
I get that same exhilaration from a yoga class. So
Yeah.
I can come in, my tank can be completely empty, and
Yeah.
I am absolutely full when I leave.
Yeah, that's the way I felt today.
Yeah, I feel and even from teaching, I feel absolutely full. It's like plugging my battery in and charging it up.
How do you look at breathing in a yoga class or breath? As she takes a deep breath. So one thing that I'm very, very conscious about when I teach is that I say to stay and breathe, because I noticed it took me probably about 7 years into my practice to really kind of figure out that breath and movement and creating more space with the breath. Mm-hmm. And I had a teacher that would say, move here and hold, and I realized I was holding my breath. And I always try to cue to say... So instead of saying, hold here, you say...
Stay and breathe.
Stay and breathe. That's good.
Because my hope is that people are here, and then they're like, okay, I'm going to bring my attention back to my breath. What's happening with it? And I think that there's a lot that can happen with movement and breath if we take a deeper breath.
Right.
And I think some people are so focused. I see it. I can see people are so focused on movement and where their placement that they're holding their breath.
Yeah.
And I noticed in my practice, once I was really just moving and breathing, and actually really having the breath guide how my body moved, mm-hmm. it made it significantly easier. Mm-hmm. Even the hardest poses got easier when my breath led it. Does that make sense?
So like breath first?
If the exhale takes me 8 seconds, take the 8 seconds to get into the pose. So if I'm going to exhale somewhere, I've got that whole exhale. Why rush there? Mm-hmm. And then finish the exhale? Like take my time to get someplace.
Yeah.
With that whole breath.
Right.
And that inhale's creating space here. So if I'm lifting up to crescent lunge with a breath, that breath is already bringing my shoulders back. Let that start the effort. Mm-hmm. And then I just have to continue the movement.
Yeah. I know that for me, breathing really helps. Like if I'm in a difficult pose and I'm having to hold it for a while, if I'm like, okay, concentrate on your breathing, I can get through this.
yeah, right? Or even do you ever just exhale, mouth open, exhale, and just like you can feel tension starting to come, and if you just exhale with your mouth open?
Well, how do you look at the two? There's the inhale. What does that do? Exhale, to me, it feels like release, and your muscles release, and your mm-hmm. body releases. And the inhale is what?
Creating space and lifting up and expanding and owning my space. Mm-hmm.
And filling you full of oxygen.
Yeah. I don't even really think about the benefit of the oxygen coming in and out.
Right.
It is it's encouragement.
Well, okay. Well, what is For you,
So-
what is yoga from a let's break it down to like from a physical standpoint. How do you look at yoga physically, not necessarily mentally or?
Gosh, this is hard.
Well, I mean, because
Yeah.
people that don't know yoga, I know lots of people that are like, oh yeah, yoga, yeah, have fun with that.
Yeah.
It's
Oh,
like
it
glorified stretching.
Yeah, no. It's hard.
Oh yeah,
I mean,
I felt that today in class.
The physical strength it takes to do, a yoga practice, it takes a lot. It has completely transformed my body physically.
Mhm.
And I used to weigh less than what I do now.
Mhm.
And I know I'm pretty trim. But the leg muscles that I've built doing yoga is completely transformed the way I feel about myself.
Mhm.
I used to be really uncomfortable in shorts. Now I'm like, why wouldn't I show off these quads?
Yeah.
Right? Just to be able to move through the day, the strength I have to sit up straight, all those things, like the physical transformation that I have felt by doing yoga over and over and over again.
Yeah.
And the strength in my arms and
Yeah.
it's powerful. It is hard work.
Now, how about from an energetic standpoint? How do you feel about yoga and the energy flowing through you?
I would say that no matter what is my starting base
Mhm.
of energy, I am always land up, even in restorative. So I'll start here, but I feel restored and energized and full. So my energy level is always higher at the end,
Mhm.
no matter whether I'm teaching or practicing. It's something has been released out, and I've filled up with only positive.
What's interesting, you say release and filled up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If I'm crabby, I get crabby sometimes.
Really? Tell us more.
I had an argument with someone, or I've been in toxic work environments. So if I was in a toxic, some of those toxic work environments, and I came here and I had all of this junk,
Mhm.
call it just junk sitting inside of me, and I twist it out and exhale and feel that physical intensity burns all that off.
Mm.
And I can release it out, whether it's through my breath or just shaking it off my body or twisting it out of my muscles.
Mhm.
I believe that I've reached the point where it's more emotional and mental than it is physical.
How do you mean emotional?
The practice allows me to get rid of those, process out my emotions that I don't need to hang on to. So if I, disagreed with someone or am concerned about someone's opinion of me, and I come and I just literally the way that I move my body, the way that I breathe, I can process it and let go.
Well, that's nice.
It is really nice. To the point that we've been in being new in a relationship, we don't see eye to eye on everything.
Mm-hmm.
And so when we have those things where we're not necessarily agreeing perfectly on something, I'll come over here, I'll practice yoga, and I'll go home and I'll go, hey, I've got this all figured out. He's like, how do you do that? I said, it's the yoga.
Do you meditate?
Not formally. I don't schedule time and have an altar and all that set up, but I take time constantly to just sit, breathe, and let go.
Mm-hmm.
So I try to do that throughout my day.
Yeah, it's I've found it's great. It's great to be conscious of your breath, in situations when you could be at work or anywhere, and it's just you just take a couple of really deep breaths, and then that you immediately feel better.
Yeah. Do you have formal meditation time in your day?
I try to meditate each day,
Mm-hmm.
but it could be anywhere from 5 minutes to 30 minutes, just depending,
Yeah.
I mean, we're all busy. That's the whole thing.
Well,
It's hard to get unbusy. I know for a lot of people, it's tough to go to work and do all these things, and I'm not going to meditate. Now I got to go to my yoga class, and I'm going to go here and there, and I'm really interested in ways that people can somehow get around that, and if you can just remind yourself to breathe
yeah.
during the day a few times
Absolutely.
a day, it really helps.
My dad is probably one of my best friends, and he set me straight one time because he said, well, you should go do this. And I said, well, I don't have time, Dad. He goes, no. He said, you're not willing to make time.
Oh, interesting.
And I was like, oof. That was in an email. So I couldn't shoot back right away. I had to read that and then go, ooh, yeah. He called me out on it hard, and I loved it. And so I do that now in my world. So I'm like, well, I don't have time for that. I said, actually, you're not willing to make time.
I have time for it, willing to make time. I like that.
Right?
I like that a lot.
We all have the same amount of time. We can all allocate our time in the way that we choose.
Yeah.
If I choose to eat my lunch and read news, that's my choice. I could eat my lunch and then go for a 5-minute walk by myself, and that would be my choice.
What do you think are some practical things people can do to be more in the now, in the moment? I mean, obviously yoga's kind of one.
Yoga's kind of one. Honestly, I think if we all slowed down just a little bit in how we move through the world, we could be more now.
But how do you slow down?
Just literally just walk a little slower, be aware of what's around you, notice what's going on with other people. I think that's probably one thing that yoga has really helped me. It's made me a little bit easier to read people. If we listened more than we spoke. There's a great quote, and I'm not going to remember the guy's name, but said, "Are you listening, or are you waiting for your turn to talk?" It's something like that. And I think if we spent more time listening, and then instead of waiting for our turn to talk, we could be more in the now. There's multiple times I have conversations, and I'm so busy listening, I forget what I was going to ask or what I want to say next. And to just be there with that person.
Right. Well, it's interesting you say that, because part of why I'm doing this is because I feel that Marnie asked me one day, and I'll ask you the same thing later. She's like, "What's your superpower?" This is. She said, "What's your superpower?" And I looked at her and I thought about it. At first she's thinking superpower, Superman or Iron Man or something. But in fact, I came to the conclusion that my superpower, if I was just to think about myself, is I just love having conversations with people and hearing their stories. And I'm not necessarily, most people that know me, if I'm in a group of people, they'll say, well, Keith, he doesn't talk very much, but when he talks, I like to listen, and I think people really like to be listened to, and so that's such a cool quote you said, or whatever the quote was from that person about waiting for your turn to that's super. What's your superpower? I mean, you can think on it.
Yeah, I kind of think about probably how my friends would describe me, in terms of just like a sense of calm, right? I can bring, for the most part. There's sometimes I get hot, but I don't get hot very often. That I'm just very even. One of my coworkers at my last job, she said, I always loved how you just approach everything with calm. You don't yell, you don't get upset, you just come in, okay, we got a problem, take a deep breath, and let's figure it out.
Yeah.
So.
Well, That's,
Yeah.
that's a cool superpower.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I hope
Being
so.
calm. Yeah, it's not always easy to do in this world.
Yeah, it's hard. So
Now, I feel like didn't you go someplace in the last year to go do yoga some far off, or you have several times, or
yeah.
where did you go?
Well, I did my teacher training at Kripalu in Massachusetts. So I went away for that, which was really, really helpful, which really helped me just kind of sink in and figure it all out. And then I went to Morocco to learn how to surf, and we were doing yoga there.
Of course, because that's where we learn to surf.
Right. It is like in the top 25 places to go surfing.
So were you surfing on the Atlantic, the Mediterranean?
On the Atlantic.
At the Atlantic, okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow.
I love it. And then, not last summer, the summer before, I went to Sicily and practiced yoga. And I did yoga every day, every morning. And it was supposed to be a 90-minute practice, but the teacher was just so into it. It would usually go almost 2 hours. And it was just like cool stuff. She had us just like doing all these things, and she was trained in India, and so she would come up, and I'm not a big fan of being adjusted, but with her, she could do whatever she wanted, because she knows anatomy so well, and she learned who I was and how my body works so quickly. She could come and knew exactly how to push and pull with confidence, and
Right.
I was never had concerns.
Right.
But yeah, it was like really fantastic back.
Did you get up on the board and surf?
Yes. Yes, I did.
I was thinking about that in the back of my head. I'll have to ask her that.
Yeah.
You did?
Yeah.
How long were you in Morocco?
I was there for 8 days.
Okay.
We surfed every day.
Yeah. Well,
I took
I
one day.
recently took surfing lessons and learned to surf too.
Where did you go?
I went to Kauai
Oh, yeah.
with my friend Corey, who he works construction and he goes surfing every day. He's got a surf van and there's a bed in it, and so I went over there with him and he taught me how to surf, and we would surf all day, and then we go to the bar and we'd have some drinks, and then the two of us would just crawl in the back of his van, you know, because we weren't going to be driving. So we just crawl in the back, fall asleep, wake up the next day, go surfing again.
Did you love it?
It was super.
Yeah.
I loved it. I want to go back there.
Yeah.
I think surfing. Yeah, surfing. What you know, part of the reason I'm talking to people is that connection you feel with the world, with life, with everything, the universe. When I was surfing, when I was out there on the board, it's like you forget everything else. It's amazing. I mean, how did it feel for you surfing?
Yeah, so the first time I went, I was in a really toxic work environment, and so I took this trip, and the beautiful part is when you're out there surfing and you're paddling and you're trying to figure out the wave and when to hop up and how to align yourself and try not to fall off, you can't worry about anything else. And there was one time we had gone out, I graduated to the green waves, and we had to take our turn, you know, catching a wave and going in. And I was sitting there and I was facing west. Yeah. So I was looking out into the Atlantic, and there's nothing but water to the curve of the earth. And that's all you can see is water. And I was sitting there and I was like, what am I doing with my life? Why am I working 12, 15-hour days at this company that it is giving me nothing back? I'm empty at the end of every day. And what was Ishmael, I think was the coach's name that day that I had. He goes, Sarah, what are you doing? And I said, well, I'm contemplating life. He's like, stop that. Get over here and catch a wave. And I was like, right. Because there wasn't anything I could do about my life or my situation back home then. But there were waves happening and I was missing out.
That's true. Although I would argue that because of where you were on the water, staring at the curve of the earth, and just looking at, you know, the the Atlantic, you were able to process things. In yoga class, I've had teachers tell me it's like this isn't all about just like stopping thinking. You go ahead and think. Process things, because when do you actually get a chance in the busy world out there to process to actively like process stuff. So sometimes it's okay while you're doing yoga or meditating to go, okay, I'm gonna think about these things. I actually get to do it.
Yeah. I would say that a lot of times I figure out, like, I then admit when I'm wrong about stuff is when I'm practicing. Like, I can like think through and turn something over in my head and be like, okay, I'm actually wrong here. I need to go back and admit or correct my course of action. But yeah, I think thinking through classes, absolutely, why not?
Yeah. I've gotten some of my best ideas. I was thinking about ways to get into the zone. I get some of my best ideas when I'm cooking. Like, if I take the time to cook, like make the time to cook instead of the excuse of I don't have time to cook.
Exactly.
I cook a meal these days. I actively cook a meal like 3 or 4 times a week and really pay attention to it. And that whole process of chopping up everything, getting everything ready, I love to put it all in bowls. It's like the world just melts away, and I'm not thinking, I'm just doing. I'm getting the food ready, and I'm getting the food, and in the back of your head you're thinking, when it's all done, we're all going to sit down and we're going to eat it, and it's going to be so fantastic. But during these moments, I feel this kind of here's a concept I think about a lot, and that is getting out of your own way, getting out of your own head, not thinking so much, having your subconscious, your subconscious come to the front and your conscious mind go to the back. And so it kind of happens in yoga, it happens in surfing, it happens in meditation, but for me it happens when I get completely into like cooking. Cool. I don't know why I took off on this tangent, but do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I cook too, and I really love cooking for other people.
Me too.
So to sit down and make a meal for myself, yeah.
Right.
But so what's your specialty?
Oh, my specialty. I make a dish called moqueca, which is Brazilian fish stew.
Okay.
And it's got coconut milk in it, and whitefish, coconut milk, tomatoes. I'm blanking out, but it's something someone taught me a long time ago, and I make it a couple times a year, and it's always a hit.
That's cool.
How about you?
Risotto.
Really? Risotto's really hard to cook. Cook well. Don't you think? Maybe it's easy for you.
It's not hard. It's time consuming.
Oh.
It's being patient.
Because it's cooking at a very low.
Yeah, you just take your time to cook it. I probably make it once a week. So we have a gluten-free house, and so risotto fits in really well because it's rice. And I mix it up, and I've done chicken, I've done different things. I do a lot of shrimp, and I'll do mushroom. But I, again, just like you, I was taught how to do it a long time ago. Now, the woman that taught me, I cheat these days on it, because she would heat her broth and keep the broth hot, so then as you add more in, the temperature doesn't drop and then have to reboil again, which does make it better. It does make it a little bit faster. I just skip that. I just add a little bit at a time. Let it absorb in, add a little bit more, absorb in, and then lots of cheese and lots of butter.
So what's the feeling you get while you're cooking risotto?
It's just like, it's almost like breath. It's my breath work. And I just love that sensation of like, I get all my stuff ready and then I add in, and it's just that like constant connection and change of rice and broth and rice and broth coming together to make something. And
then when you serve it to somebody, you get that, it's just that added bonus.
So I do that. and then I'll do I'll do fish. I don't like doing really a lot of like pork or beef because I don't really know how to cook it very well. But like to throw some Brussels sprouts in the oven with some butter on it, and just let it go until I can smell it. So that's the other probably the thing that
I'm getting hungry.
I know. So that's probably the other thing is I don't set a timer. I set a timer so I have a loose idea of what's going on with things. But certainly with risotto, I have no timer. I just do it by sense. If I do fish, Brussels sprouts, corn on the cob, other things, I just kind of do it like, I just kind of go and like, well, we were cooking something last summer and I was like, well, how do I know when the corn on the cob is done? And I just went, well, I can't smell it yet. I'll let you know.
Yeah.
He's like, what? I go, yeah, can you smell it yet? No. Okay.
Well, if I make a soft-boiled egg, I have to time it.
Yes, those you have to time. Those are very much a timer thing. So.
But I love the feeling of, well, I like this because we're going, these things that really, where you can feel it, where it is like your breath work, it's your practice, it's cooking, it's surfing, it's yoga, it's running.
Yeah.
What other things do you do to like kind of be in the now, be in the moment?
The other thing that I do that is that's been in my life a long time is knit.
Oh yes.
Yeah, do you see me knit?
Yes,
right?
Yes.
Yep. And I think it fits in, like, it's just such a connector to me to yoga is because I knit and I purl. I knit and I purl. I inhale and I exhale. I inhale and I exhale. And the more complex the pattern is, the better it is for my mind being in the now because I have to be counting. I have to be keeping track of what I'm doing. And somewhere in my house, I have this piece of paper that my mom gave me in probably 7th grade, and it was some coach that talked about how your mind can only hold one idea at a time, right? So we all think, oh, I can multitask, I can think through all kinds of things, but really we can't. So it's you have an idea, you might flip through 50 in 5 seconds, but so when I'm knitting, that's all I can think about, right? Is I'm knitting, I'm knitting, I'm knitting, I'm knitting. And then I can't be worrying about the dust bunnies underneath the bed or, the laundry that needs to get done or anything else or, concerns about work. I can just let that all go.
I love how we're hitting all of these
all
these
the
different
topics.
Practical topics. This is so
And then
cool.
I have a sweater at the end
Yeah.
that I can wear and go, well, I made this.
Yeah.
And it was interesting to go back to Marnie, and I'm so grateful she gave the exact answer that I would have wanted. I made a scarf for Lucia for her wedding, and I made her this beautiful blue scarf, and I said, well, hopefully you don't have anything blue yet in here. And then Lucia was like, oh my gosh, Marnie, what do I do? She made this for me, she knitted this. How do I make her something and give it back? She's like, knitters never expect a gift in return. We knit because we want to give. And I was like, yes, that's exactly true. That's why I have knitted so many baby blankets. And the best thank you for any of that is that you use it. So.
Yeah. And I do believe that every time we give just to give, we still get.
Oh.
You know what I mean?
Yes.
It's
Yes.
But it's for ourselves. It's
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, I wish more people were in the world to give just to give.
Yeah.
And not to give back.
Yeah. Yeah. How about? Would you consider yourself a spiritual person?
Yes.
Can you talk about it? I mean, like
Sure.
spiritual, like.
Yep. I do consider myself Christian.
Mm-hmm.
I grew up going to church, although I don't necessarily think that my church necessarily did the best job of educating me about Christianity. Here, I'll tell you why. So when I was little, I knew like the big stuff, right? So I always believed, I was like, how can no one believe that Jesus is real? He was born on Christmas, and by Easter he grew to a man and they crucified him.
Okay.
And like in my head, he went from baby to adult
In a few months.
From Christmas to Easter. So I think my Bible school lessons weren't quite sinking in when I was little. But for me, it goes beyond just thinking about just that one person. So we go to church every Sunday, or we try really hard. And for me, having that time with my partner to sit and listen to really good messages about, being kind, showing up in the world, give to give, treat others as you want to be treated. It becomes this partnership meditation for us to connect together and then connect to faith.
You said meditation.
Yes, I do.
Ah,
Yeah.
yeah. Do you think of things like, not to jump the shark here or something, but do you think of things like from going from Christianity to like being out surfing or doing yoga? Do you feel a spiritual connection when you're doing those things?
Oh, yeah.
Like how do you feel spiritual when you're on a surfboard?
I think it's just that course of energy, right? It just gives me a sense that there must be a higher power out there that I can connect to by letting go of all of the, I want to say like adult stuff that we're supposed to do, the thinking and the doing and just being free to just let whatever energy, emotion flow through me.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel that on a surfboard. I feel that when I'm practicing yoga. I feel that when I'm singing some of the hymns that I really love. So I would say that more often than not, I know that I hold back tears at church.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah. That must be kind of a good feeling. I mean,
I just feel this overwhelmed with feeling and emotion.
I've had that happen in yoga class too.
Yeah, I have cried many a times.
Yeah.
And to me, it's like there's something around me. There's something sitting within me and around me that is creating a safe place for me to just let go.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it's. It's taken me a long time to be comfortable to talk about how much I love going to church and being at that, and I think that's something that's really been. I'm really embracing and evolving, especially now that I have a partner that goes with me.
Yeah.
So yeah.
What do you think it is to be human?
Whoa. I think to be human, it is to accept our boundaries, like our self-boundaries, and I don't mean that in terms of like boundaries with other like there's only so many things I'm good at, right? Like I'm an okay singer. There's some notes I can't hit. That's a boundary for me. And just
so like your limits?
Yeah, I guess yeah. Okay. Yeah, my limitations of the things that I can do and I can't do, and to both bump up against them to try to grow beyond them, but also accept where it stops.
Yeah. Yeah.
That is like a really out there answer, and just to be like so aware of our impact on everything else around us
as humans. Yeah.
As humans, yeah. Will and I were somewhere, and I said, "Oh, did you notice how slow this person walked?" I said, "I can see that they feel physical pain."
Mm-hmm.
Just in the way that they align their body and move and walk. And he goes, I didn't notice that. How did you notice that? I said, because that's just the way that I engage in the world around me.
Yeah. Well, yeah, it's hard to notice everything.
It is hard to notice everything. It is hard to notice everything, but I try, and I think that's part of being human. Sometimes I wonder if we're just a big experiment.
Yeah.
Why do you and I exist, or why does the human race exist?
Yeah, sure. Why does the human race exist? I mean, I have a theory, but
Okay.
I want to.
You can influence my answer by sharing your theory.
My theory is that we are the universe manifesting itself in such a way as to kind of like look back at itself and be conscious of itself. So we take this form and we look around and we're like, holy shit, that, oh wow, we're like the universe looking back at itself, kind of gazing at its own like belly button, but trying to just trying to figure itself out. I don't know, that's just kind of a theory.
Okay, I'm thinking on that one. Well, I do think that part of why we're here is to practice being, for whatever, I try to avoid using words like good and bad, to try and practice being human to the best of our abilities to move on to a higher place. Mm-hmm. My dad and I have had this discussion, and he can't prove me wrong, I can't prove myself right. And I said, because he's very, I'm more open to the fact that there's other religions and there's other beliefs, and I think that there's connections between all of them.
Yeah.
And he said, nope, there's one God. And I said, but Dad, how do you know that Buddha is not up there with God saying, oh, you know what, give me another chance with that one. Let's send them back through reincarnation. And let's give them another chance. And let them take time to become better. Mm-hmm. With the whole goal of getting to this place of enlightenment. And that might be, some might define that as heaven. Some might define it as some other enlightened place. But I think that there is a path that we're all on. And I think, I've seen it, I don't know if you've seen it. Have you ever met someone, they're like, that is an old soul. That person just is an old soul.
Yeah.
Or they're such a new soul. Mm-hmm. They have been practicing, trying to figure out their way to that place.
What place?
However you want to define it. So for me, I define it as heaven. Mm-hmm. And I believe that there is that place, and the spirits are there. And that's okay if people think I'm nuts for thinking that, or disagree with me. I'll say it that way. People are welcome to disagree with me, but I know deep in my soul that about 6 months after my grandma died, I was just struggling, and I just couldn't. I was so just not over it and not ready to be okay with it. Mm-hmm. And I was laying in bed and I was upset, and all of a sudden I felt on my cheeks coolness, and I felt like cool silk, and her hands were always so soft and very cool temperature, and it was just always just felt like cool silk on and she would always come up to me and put her hands on my cheeks like that, and I felt that sensation.
Yeah.
And I just relaxed and I let go, and I was okay.
Wow.
So I know she was there.
Yeah.
I know she came to me and said, it's okay.
Have you ever had any other mystical experiences?
I know that every once in a while I see like out of the corner of my eyes. Have you ever heard that? Where if you see like a little dark spot on the corner of your eye, it's your guardian angel?
No.
Hmm. So sometimes I feel like that they're there.
Yeah. Looking out for you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And with my grandma, I had an African violet that lived for, well, I had it for 20 plus years. She probably had it for 10 or 20 before that. And it would, it would go dormant, and then I would make like a major life change, like cut some toxic people out of my life, or I switched jobs, or, ended a relationship or something. And all of a sudden it would start like blooming like crazy. And I'd be like, okay, Grandma, I get it. You approve of my choices, because she's been gone since 2002.
Mm-hmm.
And it was like just her little sign to be like, nope, something's going right. And was always there to just kind of take care of me and help me whenever I was feeling worried about did I make the right choice. And then that would just start blooming like crazy, like a dozen blooms. And it was interesting, and I had a long conversation with my mom about it, because it just recently died. This plant just like.
Okay. Then
And
how did that feel?
I was just like, I was heartbroken, and it slowly started to go, and I said, well, how much can I spend on trying to save this? And he's like, how long have you had it? 20 years. He's like, whatever you want. He's like, just go for it. And I tried to save it, and it just couldn't. So my mom and I had a long conversation, and I said, I just don't know what to do. And she said, well, maybe it was time. Maybe Grandma knew you didn't need her anymore like you did back then, because you have Will now.
Oh, very nice.
Grandma waited until you had your person.
Yeah.
And now she knows you don't need her to be there every day with you.
Yeah. How long have you known Will?
Not quite 2 years.
Oh.
Yeah.
Wow.
And I knew.
Well, that's cool.
Yeah. Would you consider yourself spiritual, religious?
I would say that I'm a fairly scientific person, which sounds like, I'm saying I'm not.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm open to people's ideas and opinions and the universe.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have all the answers, and I don't think anybody really does. And I think that's just part of it. We're just searching, and maybe there isn't really necessarily an answer or goal or whatever.
Somewhere.
Somewhere.
Something to move on to.
Yes.
Yeah.
But I am interested in people's stories. I am interested. You said at one point when you were talking about Buddha, that you were interested in other religions, and I love finding the connections between all of them. Yeah, I'm kind of a philosophically curious.
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't call myself an agnostic, but like I'm open to.
Yeah.
I have this strange relationship, not strange, but just this personal relationship with the universe that's kind of like I said, I feel like we're all just kind of like trying to figure it out, and
Mm-hmm.
For some people it's this way, it's this religion, or it's this philosophy, but I don't know. Who knows?
Yeah.
There are mysteries in the world that I don't think anybody will be able to figure out, and so yeah, I'm curious.
Yeah, good. I would rather spend time with someone that's curious, agnostic, uncertain, like still searching.
Yeah.
That's someone that is.
Yeah.
This is their only religion, and this is the only way.
Yeah.
And everyone else is wrong, because that person to me is so much more closed off to
Yeah.
all the goodness in the world.
Yeah.
That yeah.
Well, I just feel like you
Sometimes it's
can
like-
breathe. You can breathe so much better, and your heart beats so much fuller when you're just open to what is.
Yeah,
You know?
absolutely.